Okay.
Right. Hi, Mar. Thanks for joining in. The name of the show is How I Closed It. So Mar is an expert in demo to close, rightly named. So he has the company named after it. He trains professionals and the companies in how to really hone in on the process from demo stage to the closing. Yeah, thanks for coming in, Amar.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Sure. So three questions. So one thing is like, how is your typical process of closing? Like the frameworks, the methodology you use, what do you recommend?
Yeah, I don't use any formal methodology, whether it's Sandler, spin, band, whatever. I don't use it, not because I choose not to. I've never taken any of those methodologies. So my methods, I don't know if you're a martial arts fan, but if you know who Bruce Lee is, you know that Bruce Lee made his own martial arts called Jeet Kune Do. And Jeet Kune Do is essentially just a concoction of judo and kung fu and karate and all these things, and he made his own thing. And so that I sort of did that, but using my experience doing sales myself, coaching, reading books, taking courses, webinars, getting coached, and I've sort of made my own thing. And it's funny because a lot of the methods or tactics or frameworks that I use could probably be found maybe in a Sandler or maybe in some others like gap selling or whatever it is. So that's, I'm sort of answering the question in twofold. So no, I don't have any formal sales training. It was more of like went into the deep end, had to figure it out. My approach to my framework and approach to closing is it's all about number one, discovery, and everyone is saying that. You probably see it on LinkedIn. It's all about discovery. And then I call what I do in terms of closing is I call it micro closes. So let's assume for a minute you have a lead on the hook, meaning you did some prospecting or you have an inbound lead coming through some top funnel marketing efforts, webinar, whatever it is, Capterra, G2 Crowd. And you are now doing a discovery call, then you plan on doing a demo, and then after the demo, you plan on closing them. So the discovery part's really important. I'm going to ask for a close, a micro close during the discovery portion of the call. And that could be sort of like an upfront contract, which is a Sandler method, where it's like, hey, Harish, if by the end of the call, if you feel like it's not a fit, would you be comfortable telling me? And yes, you would, whatever it is. And then, hey, at the same time, if you feel like it is a fit, would you feel comfortable telling me that it's a fit and talk about next steps? And you'd say yes or no, whatever it is. That is a micro close, essentially. I'm closing you with that question. And then, so I'm doing that during the discovery. I'm also doing a micro close throughout the actual demo. So during the discovery, I'm going to find out problems that you have, pain, challenges, goals that you have, and I'm going to prioritize those pains, or you're going to prioritize and share them with me. When I do the demo, I'm only showing you the features. I'm prioritizing the features that are solving those big pain points that you had mentioned in the discovery. When I'm done showing you a particular feature, I'm going to ask you, hey, Harish, you had mentioned earlier on that you have pain over here and it's impacting your business this way. Based on what I showed you, do you feel like this would be a fit for you? And you're going to say either yes or no, or I don't know, kind of maybe. That is a micro close. Me asking you that post feature fit question is me trying to close you on that feature. If you say yes, I just closed you for that feature. Now I'm doing that throughout the call. So I'm constantly stacking up my closes. By the time I get to the end of the call, before I show the pricing, I'm going to ask you before we go into pricing, based on what you've seen today, do you feel like FTTC is a fit for your business or whatever company you're selling? You're going to tell me yes, no, whatever it is. If you say yes, then I've just closed you even more. And then essentially I'm stacking that up. And at the end of the call, I'm going to ask you, ready to sign up, or I'll ask for the close in some other way. So my framework, my method for closing is micro closing throughout the call.
Makes sense. I think that's a very effective approach from what I see is like, because the sales is not the last part always, right? Like it starts from the very first stage And like your approach of incrementally finding out and then like getting that commitment in, that way the buyers as well, they are like working with you towards it, right?
100%. I have a bottle, an empty bottle every time, and I can only fill it up to this. Let's call this 100%. Let's call this the close. The deal's close, right? Every discovery, I'm going to ask a micro close. I'm going to fill up the bottle with a little bit more water. And throughout the call, every time I do a micro close, I'm filling it up, filling it up, filling it up, filling it up. Then I have a full bottle of water, which is a full bottle of closes. That's the idea. That's my analogy, at least.
Makes sense, man. I really like the idea.
Like that
of
one?
yes, definitely that's going in. So yeah, and also your analogy of making your own framework or process, because every sale, every industry, every deal is different. So one need to bring their own way to see what works, what doesn't, and then figure out their flow. So yeah, that's good to know more. And the second question is an anti of the first one. Like, how do you not close, or how, for example, you lost a deal and some things which you avoid altogether, like during your sales cycle.
So I'm going to reframe the question back just so I understand. You're asking, how have I not closed a deal, or the question is, what can someone do that can prevent them from closing the deal?
Yeah. So yeah, I think the takeaway is that so how the question as such, I mean, the answer would help sales rep in the takeaway of helping them losing a deal. So yeah, pretty much that's the bottom line.
I mean, there's a lot. There's not one for sure, no doubt about it. Lack of discovery, shallow discovery, is a big one. If you don't know your prospect, if you don't know the pain, the problem that the prospect has, you don't know how big that problem is, and you don't know who's being impacted by that problem, because it could be multiple people in the organization, and you don't know when they actually want to solve that pain. And you do a demo, or you try to pitch, or you do your whole sales charade, you won't close them because there's so much information that you're not addressing during the call that prevents you from closing. And you do the demo, you send them a post demo follow-up email, and you just sort of dump a bunch of case studies and dump a bunch of information that you had on the call. They ghost you, and you have no idea why they're not answering, and you have no information to even follow up with. So the deals that I've seen sales reps lose most of the time happened because they didn't do a good enough job through the discovery to understand all this information, so they can later use as part of the demo and the follow-up. And then there are deals that you lose because it's a condition. I remember when I was a real estate agent, one of my trainers, mentors, said to me, there are only two situations that happen in sales. Either it's an objection or it's a condition. An objection you can handle, or you can get over, whatever it is. A condition, you can't really do anything. If somebody was getting divorced and that's why they were motivated to sell their property, now they went to a marriage counselor and they've rekindled the marriage, and now they're no longer getting divorced, and because of that they're not selling the property. That's a condition. You are not going to get over that. And so there are certain conditions in sales that you cannot get over. So a condition could be, maybe they had an allocated budget for your software, and I don't know, economy goes crazy, the VCs and investors get spooked, they say do not spend anything on any money on anything, and everyone's holding tight. And that's a condition. You can't go now try to convince the VCs. So it's important for whether you're a founder-led sales or a sales rep, to understand if the situation in which you're in, where the deal may not close, is a condition or an objection.
Okay. Yeah, I like that dichotomy. Yes, to really zoom into the overall objection handling, right? To categorize, is it really a condition which we can't really do, or an objection, something which can be worked around? Now, that's a real
I'll add to number two to this question, because I think it's very important, and I've personally experienced this. When you don't have a large pipeline of leads, and I'll put a little parentheses there, if that large pipeline of leads, it has to be accurate, meaning those leads are qualified leads that are really, really warm, ready to buy during a particular period of time. If you don't have that and you're working with a lead drought, then the way you're going to sound on your sales calls or emails and follow-ups and the conversations, you're going to sound a little bit desperate, which is going to make you sound very salesy. And then you're not going to think logically and strategically. You're going to think very selfishly because you're like, holy crap, I don't have any leads. I need to make money. I need to make sure this closes. And you're now thinking for yourself and not thinking about the prospect. And usually that causes a salesperson to be too much, harass, be too selfish, feature dump, they get desperate.
So yeah, I think, I mean, honestly, yeah, I have gone through that too. So, so during these times, so do you suggest like something more like reminding ourselves of, yes, this is the process, not to sell too short, or, to go on board with the regular, like, salesy pitch, just to keep calm and then do the drill. Is it what it is?
It is, but it's harder to think that way if somebody doesn't have the pipeline that they need to feel confident. It's going to be harder to think in that way, right? Like, somebody wins the lottery, or I don't know, whatever it is, they get a crazy good exit from a company. Now they're sitting on maybe $500,000 or $2 million, whatever it is, right? They're going to feel a lot more calm, and that opens up space in the brain to think a little bit more creatively, strategically. You're going to think long term. You're not going to rush anything. If you're in a rush because you don't have the resources, you start cutting corners because you're scared. Time is of the essence. So you start cutting corners to save more time. And so if you don't have the pipeline, yeah, you can do this self-talk all you want. I mean, the answer to everything is prospect more, lead generate more. And when I say prospect, it doesn't have to be cold calling and cold emailing, although it should also be inbound prospecting. Podcast, get on podcasts, do a workshop, free workshop, invite people. There's a lot of ways you can get leads. Most of my leads are coming in inbound, not outbound.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, that's really good gold nuggets there, Amar. So I think the last question is, if you remember, I know you have been in sales for some time. If you remember, when was the first time you closed, what really changed the game, in the sense you are doing something, it wasn't working, suddenly a tactic, or some enlightenment which really changed the game?
Yeah, the first time I closed a sale, I don't even remember. Technically, we've been doing sales since we were little kids, right? Trying to get the chocolate or the candy or the toy. Man, it'd be hard for me to even like come up with an original, but I can tell you,
maybe past.
Yeah, maybe when I launched my business 8 months ago. I've been profitable since. When I say profitable, I'm pretty much making the same living that I was as a VP of sales. The first time I closed like one of my big clients, I actually got it from cold emailing them. Funny enough, so I had tell you a little story. I would say I'm relatively frugal. I'm very calculated, and I'm very conservative with money. So I don't splurge like crazy. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I wouldn't lose it. I'd probably be very wealthy because of the way I handle money. But so I was calculating my runway, which for anyone that doesn't understand, it means how much money you have left in the tank, in the bank, before you essentially close up shop or have to get investors, whatever it is. So my runway was my savings for my business, and then I have my personal savings for my family. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, I have about a month or two left of runway before I have to dip into my personal savings. I am a very strong believer in don't dip into your savings unless it's like there's no other way, but there is always a way. And so I was like, I don't want to dip into my savings, and I don't want to work full time for anybody. And so I have two choices: dip into my savings or get a full-time job before I close up my business or put my business on the side. And so I decided I have 1 month to land 3 clients. And when I'm talking about clients, I'm talking about consulting, coaching clients.
Good.
It's not cheap. I would say it's relatively I would say it's like a mid-market enterprise amount of dollars for me to close. And so what I did was I said, okay, what's the lowest hanging fruit? What can I speak to blindly? And if I say that I'm from this industry, then the prospect will be like, wow, more is legit. And so I picked industries that I've worked in the past where I was a VP of sales that I was very successful in, where the companies are well known in that space. And I looked up the founders and CEOs of similar companies, and I drafted out an outbound email. And I specifically mentioned in that outbound email that I was the former VP of sales of XYZ company. And I knew exactly what that CEO was thinking because I worked in that industry. So I can speak to my buyer persona really well. And so I sent those emails. It only took 2 cold emails to land a prospect, my first big client, on a discovery call, which that went on to a second call, 2 more calls, and we closed them in 1 month. When I say me. And that first email was that first original email. The second email was just a bump to get their attention. Got them on a discovery call. We did 3 calls, closed them on that 1 month, and they became a client of mine. So I'll never forget that because that was my big client, and that gave me the confidence to now set up my rates the way they're set up. Gives me more of the, I mean, everybody deals with imposter syndrome, but that gave me more confidence to feel that I know what I'm talking about and I know what I'm doing. And they were very successful with me. But yeah, that was my first recollection of like a big deal that I closed. And I went about it by, I really knew who my buyer persona was. Psychologically, I knew what they were thinking. I knew what they were dealing with internally in their business. And I knew the language that only someone internally can know the language. And so I guess my advice to anyone that's trying to close more deals and you're trying to prospect, the easiest way is prospect to an industry that you know really well and the buyers that you know really well.
Nice. Man, that is really impressive. I mean, two mails, I mean, 2 emails then landed. I think it goes back to your original thoughts of like to do a great discovery, right? In this case, you really discovered how you had to position, where you had to go, understand, and then their language. So, and you did all the discovery things, all the prep of work.
Yeah.
The next steps becomes much more easier that way.
Yep. And I ended up, so I was like, wow, I closed that client. And I closed 2 more clients. I ended up closing 3 big clients in 1 month, that 1 month that I needed. And that for me was a signal for me to continue with my business. And then I've continued and I haven't stopped, and I don't plan on stopping.
Nice. Yeah. That's really good to know. And yeah, nice as such, sharing your insights with us more.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Harish.